Carrier and Cabo Enterprises, 917. Let's head into the KUAM News Zoom room where we have Minority Leader Senator James Moylan and Senator Joanne Brown, Republican, 36 Guam Legislature. Good morning, Senators.
Hi, good morning, Chris.
Morning, Bree, Chris, Jason, good morning. Morning, Senator Brown.
Good morning, Senator Jim.
Lead a day. I kind of want to start before we get into the official misconduct bill and the upcoming oversight hearing at the port. I wanted to just get your reaction, Senator Moylan. You had made a request to Speaker Therese Terlahi was it call for an oversight hearing, or was it just investigate the complaint that had been filed with Public Health and the governor's office relative to some, I'll just say funny business going on with nurses at the quarantine facilities?
Right. Well, the information that the link shared earlier, and which I understand is about also 3 weeks of this original allegations coming on out, and you folks doing some follow-ups, and I gathered the information myself as well, and it was very helpful. So I sent a request to the Speaker's office for an oversight of Department of Public Health and Social Services there, specifically to look into the allegations at the quarantine facility, the different things that were discussed, patient care and hours are correct or not on the timesheet, responsibilities of them that they should be having. So the allegations were there, and we have not received, I haven't heard of the final outcome from the department itself on what they came out with on their findings. So therefore I requested for the oversight hearing with the Speaker.
Right. And have you heard did you say you heard from the Speaker? Did you get a response?
I had a discussion with the Speaker, and she is taking that under consideration. Being this is her committee, she would have to take things and schedule them as she feels necessary. But as the Speaker was on your program the other day, she is very much aware and super concerned of if these allegations are true. But she did point out we just need people to do their jobs, right? And hopefully this would all iron out. But it's our job as the second branch of government to ensure that we look into this as we represent the people of Guam.
Right. Yeah, I did get a response to her from her. I'm sorry, last night and to your request, and I don't know if you heard it, but she said that Public Health has reviewed the matter and assured me that there are no pending issues. But we are requesting for the director to put his response in writing for formal consideration by the committee.
Right.
I mean, I'm not sure if that means like, hey, he said it was all good, so, it's all good. Just shoot me it in writing, Finn, and then, we're done with it.
Or is it, I don't know, or is it put it in writing and let me put my eyes on it and see what you have to say on the record, and then I'll make a determination. What do you think, Senator? Is it a done deal, or do you think Speaker is still open to reviewing this after she gets it in writing?
It would be dependent upon, the director should then,
say something publicly, maybe?
Take care of the request by the Speaker. It is the official stance of the Speaker and the legislature body. So let's have the document. Let's hear your investigation. Provide us with the information that that you feel that you're comfortable with, and so we can move forward and put this behind us. But until I think the Speaker receives that, most likely we're still open. I'm still open, and then we'll see what the response is in writing. Those are allegations that need to be dealt with, and it has brought to the table. And in our situation now, we're really entrusting. We're relying on our government officials. Not to say that everybody is not doing their job, but if those accusations are out there, let's clear that up. Put it in black and white. It's done, and we can move forward so we can maintain our trust in government. Similar to what Senator Joanne Brown is her stance. If there's any corruption out there, we need to identify it and take care of it. And likewise in her bill 3736, and that's also important to help us maintain doing right for the people of Guam.
Which bill is this, Senator Moylan?
Senator Joanne Brown's bill, that's 3736.
Which bill is that, Senator Joanne Brown? What
Oh,
does
that's with regards to the official misconduct in terms of hiring, putting a prohibition on hiring someone who has official misconduct from being hired back into the government of Guam.
This whole issue, this whole story, for me, has just been one giant WTF. That's the only way I can describe it. I mean, it's just pretty. I just feel insulted, really, by the responses that we got from the port GM on the hiring of former DOC guard Frankie Rosalind at the port into a classified position. And I feel like I've been vilified for just talking about this. But I just have to remind people that it's public record. These are public monies, and so we can do that. I'm not going to sit here and try and justify why we can talk about it. But it's just snowballed into all kinds of crazy. But at its base, when you are convicted of official misconduct, whether it's a misdemeanor because the AG dropped the ball in prosecuting this case, let's just be honest, that's exactly what happened. That's exactly what happened. These guys were guilty, but the prosecution at the AG's office, it really leaves so much to be desired. But whether or not it's a misdemeanor or a felony, official misconduct, it means you can't be trusted as an official of the government of Guam. So when we found out from Rory that Mr. Rosalind was hired, the response that we got from Rory and the explanation and the reasoning that we also heard from the Lieutenant Governor, to me it was just insulting. Because they're trying to bend reality and make it seem like people who are saying that we shouldn't have those convicted of betraying the public's trust work in the government again are totally crazy, when it's actually, I don't know, it just seems like common sense. And so I guess just first, if we could just respond to that why is it that talking about barring those convicted of official misconduct from working for the government of Guam has become such a political issue? Senator?
Who do you want to take?
Yeah, I don't care.
First?
Go ahead.
Well, I think it's unfortunate because it really, as you mentioned, takes away from the real discussion and the public expectation that public officials, need to hold a certain standard in terms of performing our duties for the people. And as I've mentioned previously, it doesn't matter what position you hold in the government of Guam. If you work at the government of Guam, you work for the people of Guam. And people, our community should have a reliance that those of us that are benefiting from working for them, we should meet a certain standard of performance, and that if we violated that, we shouldn't be put in a trusted position again that benefits, someone who's done something that they shouldn't have done in the first place. I mean, we shouldn't take for granted the ability and the privilege of being able to serve our people. But you see, the backlash has been considerable, and I think that unfortunately, I think that's isolated to a certain interest group that wants the public to think that this is really acceptable and that we're just, picking on one individual. I mean, I don't know Mr. Rosalind personally. I don't even know if I've ever met him. But really, the circumstance that has been brought to light by his hiring at the port just has brought to our attention the need to address the loophole that exists in the law, so that we can prevent this sort of thing from happening, not just at the Port Authority of Guam, but throughout the government of Guam and the instrumentalities of the government of Guam. And really, there's nothing wrong with ensuring that standards exist in this government to serve our public, because I know when we're out there, I know when Senator Jim's out there, even in spite of this pandemic, there's so many ways people are able to communicate with us now. They are relaying their concerns. And I certainly run into a number of people in the course of my life going about in the community who've come up and expressed their support and are very pleased that this bill has been introduced. So, there's a lot of dust kicking going on, but I'm sure when all the dust settles, the majority interest will prevail. And I'm certainly hoping that my other colleagues, I know Senator Moylan has come out very supportive of it. He's going to be my second co-sponsor on this bill. I certainly hope our other colleagues recognize that we should have a higher expectation of government performance for our public.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to follow up because I'm looking at the bill, and there's a language in here that no person shall be employed nor continued in employment who was convicted in violation of 9 GCA. Would that mean that Frankie Roslin would no longer be employed by the government if this law were to go into effect? Or people like...
Well, I do know that if he's currently on probation, I mean, they certainly can, they can discontinue his probation if they choose to. I mean, that option is already there, irrelevant of this particular bill becoming law. So that really is the ability they have now while he's still doing a probationary period. Right. I'm sure those issues will be discussed as the bill goes through the public hearing process. But I think it really expresses a concern, certainly I have as a legislator, with regards to addressing these issues, even though obviously, as Chris had mentioned, there's such a backlash here and a lot of dust kicking big time to try to distract, I believe, the public attention to make it seem like this is really just a personal attack against a single individual. As I mentioned, I don't know Mr. Roslin personally, but certainly as a lawmaker, we have a responsibility to ensuring that we have an effective and efficient government and that public officials, to include everyone that works in the government of Guam, is performing to a certain standard. And that is an expectation, certainly an expectation I have. And I know there's many people out in our community that also feel that way. And that's simply why this bill has been introduced, is to address that loophole in the law. But like I said, this particular circumstance with this individual, as anyone on probationary status, I mean, that's at the discretion of the hiring authority. They could certainly remove him at this time if they choose to.
Right. Are any of you aware that other individuals who have official misconduct charges have been hired in the government of Guam, or any numbers or anything?
Convictions?
Like that? Yeah.
Senator Moylan?
I mean, personally, I don't know. I mean, I don't know who's working in all the other government of Guam agencies. I mean, even as a hiring authority, you may not know unless proper research is done and proper. Certainly in the government of Guam, you do have your HR operations. You have your classified panel that reviews all applicants with regards to positions. But, personally, do I know? I do not.
Do you know
but
if,
I certainly am that moving forward, this loophole should be removed from our statutes.
Do you guys know? Go ahead, Senator.
Likewise.
Go ahead, Senator.
Oh, thank you. Likewise, I do not know of any others too, but I'm very supportive of Senator Brown's measure here because specifically it's directed at 9 GCA 4990, official misconduct. So that's when that employee of the government of Guam really takes advantage of something. That employee then so much advantage just to gain personal success on something, make it advantageous for that person. And the other part of that is when the employee was to hurt somebody or take advantage of somebody else in order for that employee to gain personal interest as well. So there's, this official misconduct is really bad. I mean, you thought about it, you intended to take personal gain. If you had to cut somebody out of it who has an advantage over you, and you cut that person out because you're able to do some things based on your responsibilities as the employee of the government of Guam, that's just wrong. And I applaud Senator Joanne Brown for pointing this out and finding the loophole. And especially now, we have the pandemic. We have over 27,000 people unemployed or lost wages who are looking to be gainfully employed one day. And we were so fortunate with the government of Guam to maintain their employment during this pandemic when so many others were not able to. So as Joanne Brown, as Senator Brown has said, that, we as government employees, we had to, we had to take it responsibilities, and the people are really counting on us to make things right for them. So I do hope this bill has been referred to a committee on the 21st, and I'm looking forward to its public hearing so we can get the public input as well.
So just for the record, you're co-sponsoring Senator Brown's bill. You're not calling for any investigation into Senator Brown.
Right. Yes. I've asked Senator Brown to be a co-sponsor on the bill, and we get this to session floor, and I hope it's all favorable. We had the votes, and it becomes public law. Yes. And the reference I was making towards on the oversight hearing was in regards to the quarantine facilities.
I wanted to follow up on this press release from Senator Talina Nelson, because she sent this out after the informational briefing with the Port Authority, that she's launching a formal inquiry into port hiring practices. And it's not just for the current general manager, but she's looking into the hiring practices from 2017, 2018, 2019, and 2020. But
is 2016 too, or no?
I think it's 2017 for the past 4 years.
Right.
Maybe but so Senator Brown, it kind of looks like she's also looking into your hiring practices.
Well, I don't know why they picked the particular dates they have. I don't know why they didn't go back to 2010 or 2011 when you had this unfortunate circumstances of employees being hired.
Right. Let's get Senator Mary Torres involved. I mean, she was a poor GM. Why not call it
the most minimum level, or go back to 2005. You have to keep in mind you do have a HR division there that's responsible, has the primary and the responsibility of reviewing all applicants to make sure that they meet the job requirements, the minimum job requirements, also review their history, contact their former employers, and hopefully ensure that the applications are properly submitted to the port. You also have a classified panel that reviews all applicants, at least that are being considered to be interviewed for a job position. So certainly while general managers and heads of agencies come and go, what does remain there is the classified service that is responsible for addressing hiring. Because certainly for me, if they have a specific reason as to why, and I've heard some comments being made that, there may have been individuals hired, I hope they can reference official misconduct if that's what they're looking at. But with regards to that particular issue, I certainly would never have knowingly hired anyone who had a questionable history that I would have concern as general manager operating in what should be a yard that we're concerned, because that is a point of entry into the community, and we know that drugs are moving through the port. It's certainly getting here one way or the other, and right now maybe there's limitations with this pandemic coming through the airport, but we know it's certainly in the past has come through the port, and no doubt is a point of entry. So you're going to want to ensure that every employee there that works there is a responsible individual and doesn't have a questionable history that might put them, in a position where they may re-engage or be involved in drugs or the movement of drugs through the port. So, they certainly can look and are welcome to do so. I stand by my position as general manager and all my actions during my time there. I had zero tolerance for drugs. So, certainly if you were found positive for drugs, that was automatic termination. So any attempt, if they're trying to appear, well, Joanne has a different perspective. No, I'm very consistent with regards to my directives that I provided. And I certainly hope that all those that were under my direction at the time followed those directives, because my position has never changed with regards to that. And the record will show in terms of the actions that were taken when these type of issues came to light. I did take appropriate action.
Senator, let me just get it over with and ask, did you hire any felons at the port while you were the general manager there?
Certainly not to my knowledge, because the HR was very well aware of what my concerns were in terms of any questionable history of individuals applying for positions. And they have the responsibility for reviewing that. They have the responsibility for vetting that. They have the responsibility for contacting previous employers to ensure that, because certainly an application may look very nice, but they should also verify to make sure that what information is being provided. But Chris, I've also seen where we had a situation with an applicant who was in a designated position and would have been prohibited from being hired to that position if they had a felony conviction. And this one particular individual had worked for the port for a number of years, even prior to my coming there. But when we went back, because we were notified by federal authorities that this particular individual did have a federal conviction in this individual's record, when we went back and looked at the application, that individual never indicated that was part of that individual's history. So that individual had worked there, but when we were made aware of it, we took appropriate action, adverse action, to terminate that employee because that particular position that was held was barred. If you have a federal conviction, you cannot. It's very clearly spelled out. You cannot hold that position. And so we took appropriate action. It was unfortunate, but that's just how things turned out. I don't create the rules and regulations and the policies and procedures on my own. But I had a responsibility, certain during my time there, if I was aware of it, if I was aware of any of these issues, to take appropriate action. But that's why you also have personnel at the Port Authority of Guam that have that responsibility. So certainly, if they've had issues with regards to how they've been addressing the proper hiring of individuals, then by all means, those issues should be brought to light and very quickly corrected.
I wanted to tickle you guys' brain a little bit on this is something that we had asked, or I'd asked Senator Selena Nelson to comment on, but regarding potential conflicts of interest, I'm sure you guys are aware by now of there's a couple of relationships that she has with the port. First, her mom's sister's married to the GM, and her dad's brother is a high-level port manager. And I know we're all related, whatever, but do you think that poses a potential conflict of interest and maybe impedes on Senator Nelson's ability to independently and impartially maintain oversight of the port? Senator Moylan?
Okay. Well, I can't speak directly for that, but how the committees are chosen, it's by the majority. The majority is the Democrat senators. They in their decisions divide up all their committees. If that information was made available at that time, the majority, I guess, felt comfortable, and then it was voted upon, and the senator is now sitting in that position. Would I have done something different? Maybe. I recused myself from several decisions in the 35th Guam legislature. Now do the same in the 36th in regards to business, right? Anything that has to be addressed in insurance specifically, I've chosen to recuse myself. But I think it could be clear. I think the how to link it, if the senator should or should not be part of that decision, whether voting or whether being on a committee, is following the finances. Is there a financial gain for the senator? Maybe that question has to be asked. If not, maybe that's how this situation is where it's at. Will the senator be partial and be fair and honest? I'm sure the senator has all that in their mind and wants to do right for the people of Guam. How does it look to the public? Well, that's another thing, but it's the senator's personal position on how they carry themselves and how well they investigate things. And so I'm just hoping for the best, really, and to do the right thing for the people of Guam, especially during this pandemic situation.
Senator Brown, your thoughts?
Well, I think it's important, and you're right, Chris. A lot of us on Guam are related. It's just a question of that relation. Right. But it's also important just to have public disclosure so that people do know that there is a potential conflict. It's actually better to be ahead of the story, and relay that versus, after the fact. I mean, I don't know if she's publicly disclosed that, but, if that's indeed the case of those relationships, and that's something I'm sure she's mindful of in her oversight responsibilities, because people are going to have a different, their own perception of how they look at this. I mean, she's an elected official, and I know she knows what her responsibilities are now that she's been a senator for a bit. So, as Senator Moylan said, we hope for the best. I mean, that information's out there, so now it's not, unknown. And hopefully she'll just do as she needs to do to discharge her duties as a member of the Guam legislature and the oversight chair. To ensure the interests of the public is being met first and foremost. Perhaps that's maybe the reason as to why she has added this to, the oversight hearing and requested further investigation into the port. So there's no appearance that she's trying to, let things slide, so to speak. So, we'll see how things proceed. And at the end of the day, we're all accountable for our own actions. I'm sure she's aware of that.
Do you guys?
I'm sorry, but I'm still trying to figure out why is she looking into your hiring practices?
Maybe Uncle Rory told her to.
You're gonna have to address that question.
Uncle Rory was like, "Hey, look at Joanne," because
it was community concerns. So I'm just wondering, what are the concerns? Who brought this?
I don't know, but what I've observed, and since this whole issue came up a few weeks ago, I mean, there's obviously an orchestrated attempt to distract attention and make it appear, we're going to see how how Joanne has done her tenure. And I'm very clear with regards to my directives and my performance as the general manager of the Port Authority and what my responsibilities were. Unfortunately, I can't do all that by myself. That's why there are, HR division exists primarily to ensure that the proper procedures are followed with regards to hiring. Has that always been the case at the port? Well, records show that has not always been the case at the port with regards to hiring standards. But that's something that the HR division needs to answer for, because they're the ones that are, actively in charge of receiving applications, reviewing applications, making sure minimum standards are being met for someone to even be considered for the position, and also review their history. Some people come forth and, they put the information on their application. And as in the case of the individual that I referenced to you that we end up having to terminate because of the restriction under the law, that individual never indicated in their application years earlier when they had applied for the position, because in your application form, it does ask you a specific question. Have you ever been convicted of a felony? And that particular individual did not provide that information in their application when they were hired at the Port Authority of Guam. And as I mentioned, the only way that came to light, and certainly to my attention, was because we had federal authorities that brought it to our attention. And that's when we became aware of it. And certainly once I had knowledge of it as a general manager, we took appropriate action.
Do you guys know offhand if any of the other former DOC guards who were involved in this crystal methamphetamine smuggling scam have been able to be hired back into the government of Guam?
I don't know. I'm aware there's at least it was reported publicly that one individual is attempting to try to get their job back. You might want to check with the Civil Service Commission and see if there's any formal notice with regards to that. But that's just what I heard, that there may be one of them that are trying to get their jobs back at DOC.
So as of now, the only former DOC officer that we know of who was hired back into the government of Guam after being fired from the Department of Corrections is the lieutenant governor's brother-in-law.
I have no other sources telling me that there are others have been rehired. No, Chris, I do not know, and that could be true, but I can't say for sure.
Right. Okay. Guys, it doesn't have to be awkward. It's all public. I mean, but yeah, it's just scary. We're talking about shady people here. And yeah, it is a little intimidating, but, we asked Senator Joe St. Augustine about the bill that we're discussing. It's still in his committee. Have you had any conversation with Senator St. Augustine about getting that bill out of committee?
I've not spoken to him yet. I did message him a few days ago. I'm hoping he'll get back to me, but we're certainly waiting. We're optimistic that the current legislative majority has been moving, at least as far as taking bills and referring them to committees. They're not taking a very long time to do that, which we're very happy about. And certainly I'm looking forward to when Senator St. Augustine can schedule a hearing so we can get further public input with regards to this particular bill, and have it on the floor and address voting it up or down. I'm hopeful that they will vote it up, and that our current legislature will recognize that we have a responsibility to ensure a higher standard in government, particularly when someone has been given an opportunity and for whatever reason they've chosen to do what they've chosen to do. I don't think they should be given that opportunity with regard specifically to official misconduct, particularly when we know, and we all know, that there are a lot of good, law-abiding, qualified people out there that never even get a chance to get to the starting line, to even be considered for these type of positions. And I know, having worked at the port for 6 years, I know there are many people out in this community who would love the opportunity to have a good paying job, have insurance, and have financial security. And would love to be able to work there, but sometimes they never get considered. Their application doesn't get reviewed and doesn't get added to the list.
Yet here we are. Yet here we are talking about a guy who was fired from his job as a law enforcement officer, who was probably still on probation when he put his application in, getting greenlit for a $25 an hour job. So I mean, just the various facts of the case, they're very glaring, and when people try and defend it, I just don't understand. It's mind-boggling to me, given the state of methamphetamine on this island, that we're going to roll out the red carpet for people who are involved in smuggling it, and it's just insane, totally insane. I cannot believe that
Right.
our lieutenant governor tried to justify this to the people of Guam. I just can't. It's insulting.
Chris, I worked at Department of Corrections from 90 to 97. I was a parole officer then. I was also manning the outside gate during the riot times too. And every time we went in to do our interviews with the inmates there, we were pat down and you're checked for drugs and everything like that. But there was always a concern. And even back then in the 90s, we had employees who violated the law, who brought in contraband, who shared money with inmates too. It happened then, and it's very discouraging, and it gave me great fear to work at Department of Corrections at that time. Not only do you have to, really watch out in the front of you and in your back of you, but you got to watch the person you thought that is working with you on the rehabilitation of the clients there, because eventually 90% or more are going to be released back into our community. If we're not able to rehabilitate them then we're going to have to recycle the whole situation once again. But then it goes back to official misconduct. And at least during my time, I did see them release. Those employees were let go. What really happened to them, I wasn't in that echelon to understand what went on. But if it continues to happen, and at least with Senator Joanne Brown's bill here, we're closing that loophole. If it's misconduct, official misconduct, and the trust of the other officers, specifically at DOC, is in jeopardy, that can't be. So I'm hopeful Senator Brown's bill does move forward. We had the public hearing, which Senator Joe St. Augustine, and we get this to session floor as soon as possible.
Anything else?
Yeah, before we let you go, the budget is due on Sunday. We already heard that they're looking at $11 million short for the current fiscal year, but Lester Carlson, he was on just this week, and he's really optimistic that we're going to be able to make up that difference through federal funding coming in and other stuff. So what are you looking to see in this budget that's going to be submitted by the executive branch on Sunday?
Well, I did have a briefing, an advanced briefing of the budget, and I understand there will be reductions in the general fund for the submittal of the executive FY22 budget. So that's something I unfortunately it must be done, but we must do it. And if the executive branch recognizes those shortfalls, then we're going to take it apart from there. I understand from BBMR, I believe they're hopeful. Of course, they're full of positive, expectations in our future. But they're saying they're going to get us the budget today instead of Sunday in advance. So I'm hoping to see that today. If not, then the deadline is over the weekend, and this will allow, especially the Republican senators as well. I'm sure we're going to sit down together there and look at ways where we can help make sure that budget is properly done. Make sure we're done with remove unnecessary things that at this time it may have been right then, but may not be right now. And we can focus on the most important things being education, health, and public safety too. So it's going to give us a few months, and Mr. Carlson has been very optimistic and continues to be so because he feels within the next 7 months, when we get this to the floor to discuss in the public hearings on the budget, that things may turn around, and hopefully so. But in the meantime, we can only deal with what we do today, and that's what we know. And we're in a situation, as you mentioned, Bree, 11 million shortfall during this quarter when sales should have been high, when Christmas BBT should have been really high, when people should have been spending their money, but we already have a shortfall to start with. That's great concern for me.
Senator Brown?
Well, certainly, as Senator Moylan had mentioned, I mean, we will review the proposal by the administration. I think moving forward, we need to be as conservative as we can with regards to the budget. To think that GovGuam can live in isolation of the rest of, removed from the rest of the reality of what our private sector, particularly our tourism industry, is struggling with. I don't think we can do that. I think we need to look at how can we ensure the most critical services, the priority services in the government can continue to be provided, and where we can and where we need to address appropriate issues, then we need to do so. I mean, this is something we need to be mindful. This is something that should have been done many months ago with regards to looking at how can we prioritizing and where we may have to reduce operations or spending on less critical services. And that's the reality. I mean, we don't want to get to a situation where people are working and we can't even provide them a paycheck. That's not the type of planning we should be looking at. We need to be looking a step ahead and anticipating that we're going to be dealing with a little less money or in a lot of money in some cases, depending on how long this situation continues. I mean, we've been very fortunate to receive the federal funding that we have, but we have no guarantee in the future moving forward if that's going to continue at those levels. So, we're always, and I know Senator Moylan and I kind of look at it very much the same, wanting to take a conservative approach on what we are doing with regards to funding that's being authorized in this upcoming fiscal year.
I know that you guys are looking at this the same, and I hope I don't make it awkward with my next question, but something that I saw that you guys don't agree on is the minimum wage delay. I saw a release from Senator Brown's office that called it, what was it, Senator?
Well, I think with regards to minimum wage, I did not vote on the minimum wage increase. I kind of have a view that the market can address those issues. But this was put into law, just not that long ago to say, okay, we're going to raise the minimum wage to this amount. And then, in March of 2021, we're going to raise it another 50 cents. And then now we're going to go back and change it. So I'm concerned. I mean, there are that population out there that very much feel that extra 50 cents an hour is going to make a big, improvement to their lives because they have limited income to move forward and take care of their families, particularly during these challenging times. And I appreciate the arguments and dynamics that have come forth on both sides. But I just think that moving forward, when public officials make these kind of decisions to involve themselves in the process of influencing the economy by setting laws with regards to minimum wage, so they kind of stand with it. Versus all of a sudden now, members that voted for this are now backpedaling very quickly and saying, oh, no, the people on the low end now, no, we're not going to give them that extra 50 cents increase because of these other economic dynamics that are happening. I just think that needs to be looked at a lot more seriously. I mean, I didn't vote for it. More than likely, had I been in the Guam legislature at the time, I probably would not have voted in favor of the minimum wage issue because I just think the economic dynamics kind of will take care of that. I mean, minimum wage, you will often argue, is looked at as a starting salary to build upon, and the anticipation that employee is going to continue to grow and aspire in their respective career and move up and get promoted and get a higher salary. So, it's interesting now, of course, because of what's happened, some of the key people that were advocates for this minimum wage increase are now saying, oh, no, we are going to roll it back because of the realities of the economy. So we'll see what happens. I mean, I just think I needed to throw that perspective out there because it's just, let's be serious about it. If you're going to do it, then stand by what you're going to do and look at the bigger picture. They should have just addressed it for that year instead of, oh, we'll do the increase a year or two from now. And surprise, the economic dynamics came out very differently because of this pandemic in a very short period of time.
Before we let you go, Senator Moylan, I did want to ask you about the whole BPT issue. We heard from the governor when she did her speech before the Chamber of Commerce. She kind of mentioned the BPT like I don't even think about it. You had not Lester on the show calling it foolish.
Right. And we've heard even prior to the pandemic and back in the 35th when things were much better and the economy was doing great, we heard the term BBT would not be reduced forever if it was in some power's way, right? And now the situation, it should be changed, I believe. But of course, they're sticking to their guns. And likewise, I am as well. And so is the many of the businesses too. And that BBT won't be the rollback. That's not this fiscal year or the following. It's basically, I believe, the 23rd for that bill it passed into law. And the Adelup is so looking at things so rosy and stuff like that, optimistic, good for them. But I think, like Senator Brown has mentioned before, we're dealing with today, and especially when back then in the 35th, when things were much better and we had additional monies well above our general fund budget, they could have did it then. And then we took cuts in the budget, 60 million, and looking at another 20 million this time, and you're still telling me you can't cut the BBT. Well, we'll just have to see, you know. And I think that's where my colleagues and I, the Republicans, the 7 of us, are going to relook at that budget and to really examine it and to make sure the people of Guam's tax money is spent correctly on essential things. That's what we really want, so we can provide the essential services as we get our economy. Since we're getting our health back on its feet, let's get our economy back on its feet as well.
All right.
So to answer your question, Bree, yeah, no, I'm not going to let that go.
Ooh. Okay. Thank you, Senator Brown. Thank you, Senator Moylan. Good talk, guys.
Good to talk to you, Chris
Thank
and Bree
you.
again,
All
and everyone there. Thank you so much.
Have a good
Take
weekend.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Enjoy.
Take care.
That's that. Good talk. Good talk. Gotta talk about this stuff, guys. Don't be scared. Come on. Don't be scared, guys. It's just, you know, it's been a minute since we've had conversations like this. But it was common talk, you know, a few administrations back. Anyway, where are we? Oh, yeah, Lisa Berdalio, Catholic Social Services. And then, guys, we're going long. We're going to do a little bit of overtime.